Okay, so I'm David Wortley. I'm going to be talking about the metaverse and health and well-being. Before I do start, though, I'd just like to give you a little tour of my virtual TV studio because I've set up a number of different views of the studio just to give you an idea of how you can enhance Zoom for meetings and organise meetings in a three-dimensional space rather than the two-dimensional space you usually get with Zoom. So you can have the best of both worlds. So this is me, David Wortley. I'm a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. This isn't an actual real photograph. It's a real artificial intelligence generated photograph of my avatar, and I chose it because I think it's much better looking than I am in real life, so it makes me kind of look mean and interesting, or windswept and interesting, as Billy Connolly would say. So this is what I'm going to talk about. But I want to have some reflection about what the metaverse is, because I think people tend to have a fixed idea in their mind of what the metaverse looks like and therefore what it is. But I want to look a little bit deeper into that. I've got a wonderful case study going back 15 years to show how the metaverse transformed the life of a cerebral palsy entrepreneur, and then some examples of VR games and immersive games that provide health and well-being positive outcomes. Today, I think one of the biggest applications of the metaverse is in digital therapeutics. So I'm going to just talk about that, both physical and mental health applications, and then I'm going to summarise. So, first thing, the question to ask is, what has the metaverse got to do with health? Well, a typical view of the metaverse is pretty much like the picture that I'm showing on the screen now. It's a kind of fantasy world populated by avatars where you participate yourself as an avatar. But if you think differently and think of the metaverse as an imaginary place we've all been to. We've all been to imaginary places in our mind, as whether we're children playing with imaginary friends, or kids playing doctors and nurses, or older people dreaming about a special holiday, or even as a young child. And I know that I used to do this myself, imagining scoring the winning goal in a cup final. So that's how I want you to think of the metaverse and VR in the context of health. The way I try to describe it is it's like a spectrum where at one end we've got the physical reality, where everything is physical, real, tangible. It's in our consciousness. It's usually measurable and often predictable. It's limited by our physical capabilities. So there are lots of things that we can't do in the physical world. We can't immediately teleport ourselves to another country. It's all to do with the physical body. But at the other end of the scale, we've got exactly, if you like, the opposite of it. It's a virtual world. It's imaginary in our mind. It's intangible. It's part of our subconscious. It's not necessarily measurable, and we're not constrained by some of the physical constraints that we have as in the physical world, and it's more related to the mind. So because I believe physical and mental health are inextricably combined, it's like a yin yang. And I think we need to have this balance. We need to be able to combine what we can do with our mind and places that we can visit and experiences that we have. And the wonderful thing is that with technology, it's games and simulations and immersive experiences that make this connection between what is physical in our lives and what is virtual. And so it's an exciting time to live in as far as technology is concerned. So when you ask the question, what has the metaverse got to do with health? Well, there are a few points that I would like to make. It creates a space free from the worries of the world. So it's somewhere we can go to meditate or to escape from the realities of daily life. It's also an environment we can explore without many of the constraints that we have in the physical world. We can jump from one place in the world to another place, we can go back in time and so on. It gives us, importantly, and this is where it's, I think, very relevant to health and well-being, it gives us a sense of control and freedom. And it's control and freedom which are very important particularly in our mental health. It can help with stress management and mental health issues. I'll show some examples of that. It can provide us with space and facilities to exercise that we may not have in our immediate environment, depending on where you live. It can also provide an immersive space to socialise, and it can also be used to diagnose physical and mental health problems whilst you're enjoying the metaverse space. So I just want to say that I'm going to be focusing on personal health and well-being. There are many ways in which the metaverse can be used for medical training and collaboration by connecting real-world data into the metaverse. And although it's not a medical example, I think you'll get the point of this example from a company called Dayton, based in Birmingham. They've been real pioneers in connecting real-world data into the metaverse. And this is an example of climate change in the environment. And so they created a 360-degree environment where they brought in data that showed ocean temperatures, either in a big globe in the middle or on the map on the floor, and combined with that a number of different screens. It's almost like a control room at NASA. And it's a space where multiple people can come together, look at data, explore it, and help with diagnosis. I'm not going to be talking about that, but I just wanted to show you, to make the point that it's not just about personal health and well-being. Now, this is a wonderful story about an extraordinary man called Simon Stevens. He's a cerebral palsy sufferer. He would never use the word disabled to describe himself. He describes himself as enabled. And remarkably, and I don't know too much about cerebral palsy, but he has skills on the keyboard and the mouse that well exceed my keyboard and skills. I came across him in around about 2002, about 20 years ago, when he took part in a radio interview that I did with him, talking about technology and disabilities. And he sent me a presentation before the interview, and I never actually spoke to him on the phone. So when it came to the radio interview, and it was much like a webinar, it combined presentations with audio. As soon as he started to speak, I thought to myself, oh no, what have I done? Because I couldn't understand a word he said because of his speech problems. But I discovered throughout the presentation that really that didn't matter, because he was able to articulate his message in his presentation slides. So when I became founding director of the Serious Games Institute, I had introduced Simon to Second Life, and he'd been developing his own virtual islands in Second Life. So he did all of this himself, and what he did was to create this virtual world called Wheelies. And if you can imagine it, it's a virtual nightclub in the metaverse. So you can go to this virtual nightclub. One of the conditions of being allowed into the nightclub is that you should hire a wheelchair before you go in. So you are in the same situation as Simon. And one of the things I found quite strange and actually encouraging was the fact that when Simon made his own avatar, he didn't, like most people, create a superhuman being, can fly, can do all kinds of things. He created his avatar as a mirror image of himself, somebody with cerebral palsy in a wheelchair. And that was really, I found quite remarkable. So he was a very talented entrepreneur young man whose whole life has been blighted by his physical disabilities. I'll use the word disabilities, he wouldn't use, but he's found people, when they come across him, they hear him speak and they think he's mentally subnormal. And in fact, as a baby, he was put into a mental hospital because they thought he was subnormal. So he's had all of this stigma throughout his whole life. And when the Metaverse came along in Second Life, here was a place that he could shine and be himself. So I had no hesitation in inviting Simon Stevens to be one of our project partners, since Second Life Metaverse was one of the key elements of the immersive technologies we wanted to showcase. And so one particular occasion when we had a project meeting, very few of the project team could actually get into Coventry to physically be at the meeting. So we decided to hold our project meeting in Second Life in our virtual boardroom. So the picture on the left shows as in the virtual boardroom. I am the guy with my back to you, chairing the meeting, and you can see avatars of the other project members. Interesting, David Burden, the guy who developed Datascape, he's representing, he chose his avatar to be a fox. Not quite sure why, but that's how he chose to represent himself. But the point is, we had this project meeting in Second Life, and right at the beginning, as chairman, I said, now, because Simon is in the room, everyone, I want you not to use audio. I want you to use text chat for any questions, any comments during the meeting. So we all use the keyboard, and Simon was actually better than anybody else on the keyboard. So he was participating actively, and it was one of the most productive board meetings I've ever had, simply because our text chat was a complete minutes, accurate minutes, everything that everyone had said. But going on from that, and this was at a time where Second Life was still evolving, and it hadn't really incorporated audio or voice over IP. As soon as voice over IP came in, Simon was at a disadvantage again, because it wasn't, people could talk to each other using their own voices in Second Life, and of course as soon as Simon talked, it influences people's perception of it. So this use of the Metaverse for health and well-being was a great revelation to me, because it showed how the Metaverse can empower people and give people a feeling of self-worth, giving people a feeling that they have control over their lives in different ways. So that, for me, was one of the best case study examples of a Metaverse having an influence on an individual's health and well-being. So this is a screenshot from Wheelers. You can see on a Monday night he used to organise these disco nights, and it allowed physical and mental empowerment in different ways. So this is what Simon says about Wheelers. He was the founders of Wheelers Dance Club, and this is just a little summary of his experience of running Wheelers. But Wheelers made him an international celebrity. He was interviewed by TV stations in Canada and in Russia, and he had a lot of press articles about what he'd achieved. And so suddenly he'd gone from someone who was at his disadvantage to being able to showcase his real human capabilities, and that worked wonders for his physical and mental health. Round about the same time, there was a research project which explored the use of virtual reality as a therapy, and Snow World was one of the very early examples that illustrated how virtual reality environments can provide relief, in this particular case providing pain relief from burns. So the idea is that the patient was a virtual reality headset, and they play a game where they're listening to Simon and Garfunkel music, heavy music, and they're trying to knock snowmen over with snowballs. And all of this whilst they're having their dressing changed. And so for this research project, they put a brain scanner on the patient whilst this was doing to determine whether playing this game in the virtual reality environment had an impact. And as a result of what they might call distraction therapy, the patients suffered far less from having their dressings changed when they were immersed in this virtual world. So this virtual world rather than the metaverse. Another project at the same time didn't use a virtual reality headset, but again it's the same sort of principle of how a immersive environment and a game in this particular case played by children. It's called Remission, and the game involved the children zapping cancer cells. And again, it was a research project, and what it illustrated was that the young children who played this video game, again, they were distracted from the painful treatment that they were having, but at the same time, it gave them a feeling of control over the condition that they were suffering from. So again, it's this point about total immersion in something that will impact both not only your mental health but also your physical health. I want to show you a video of really one of my best example of the metaverse being used for health and well-being of all ages. It's available in the Meta store. It's called Alco VR. It was developed by, I think they're called AARP, but it's basically an organisation in the United States it's a charity whose remit is finding ways to support the physical and mental health of older people. So I'd like to show you a video of this, and this is where I need perhaps to use a bit of dexterity with my a bit of dexterity with playing back this video. Actually, I'll show it full screen again. So I'm going to play the video now, and I'm going to try and pause it to make points at different places within the video. So it's called Alco VR, and if I just pause the video, what Alco VR is a virtual apartment that you can invite other people into. And it's an apartment which you can customize yourself. And I just want to illustrate some of the functionality and some of the capabilities from a physical and mental health capability. So when you come into the room, this is what you see. You see the media center. And the media center has all kinds of options for showing video. So you can simply, if you want to, just invite some of your friends into your virtual apartment, and you can watch a movie together. And you watch the movie. I'll just start playing it a little bit. So you've got the media center there. And then looking around the room, you can see all the pictures on the wall. And there we have a table. It's a personalised apartment, and we have a table which you can sit around and you can play games together. So there is a games table built into this, and all kinds of games like solo games, but games you can play against other people that you invite into your apartment. Again, I'm just going to let it run a little while. You can also decorate your apartment with your own colours with this paintbrush, and you can listen to classical music together. And this screen now will open up and become an entertainment screen that gives you a whole range of other different options. So I'm just going to show some of them now. You can select a category, and one of the things at the bottom of the screen, it shows the list of things that are provided for you already. So there are movies that you can watch together. There are what you might call aging applications, special videos for veterans, and different videos for health and well-being. But at the top of the screen, you've got My Content. So you can actually put your own videos, your own two-dimensional videos, virtual reality videos, and virtual reality photographs into this space. And I'll just move on with the video a little bit. So what I do here is click on a selection. In this case, it's My VR Photos. I click on there, and it gives me a list of the different photographs, the 360-degree photographs, aerial photographs that I've taken with my drone in different places of the world. In fact, there's one in Poole, not too far away from Bournemouth. And then I wanted to just show you, if I click on Florence, it then brings up a 360-degree image that I can look around of a drone photograph that I took in Florence. You can exit that, and then around the room, to move to different areas, you use a teleporter. So you click on this kind of ghostly circle, and it allows you to move to a different part of the room. In this case, this is where you put your own photographs. So all of the photographs you see here are from my old photograph album. And in my younger days, believe it or not, I played part-time professional football. And here's a picture of Boston United reserves when I was playing. I'm the one in the second from the far right with a moustache, and that was me when I was playing part-time professional football in my hometown. So you can put your own photographs around the room. You can then teleport to other areas of the room. So I'm now going to teleport you outside. So I'm now on the balcony, and I've got a beautiful snow scene to look at. But I'm not just restricted to the snow scene. I can choose my own scenery. So if I click on one of these bubbles, it will actually show me a forest. So I can go from an alpine scene to a forest, whatever I choose, and from a forest to an ocean scene. So I've got a number of different external environments that I can choose to personalise my apartment. Now, as I go through, I just teleport onto different areas so that you can see what the apartment looks like. It's got different rooms. I'm going to be moving on to those in a minute. But there is a whole area on this table which is to do with health, mostly mental health, but also some physical health exercises. And it's all based on this health table. So if you look at the table there, there's some scented candles. There is a book about your health that you can read. And there are a number of different applications you can select. And one of them is to do with meditation. So if you click on a meditation app, you actually go into an app called Crystals, which gives you breathing exercises. I'll just play a little bit of the video. There is some wonderful cosmic sound behind the video, which I muted for the purpose of today, but you can see being immersed in that beautiful, relaxing environment can help you meditate. So moving on from there, around the room with the teleporter, we can go to the travel room. And in the travel room, you will find all kind of different hyperlinks or objects that you can click on that will take you to different parts of the world. So at the bottom, if I can find it, there's a diving bell. There we are, there's a diving bell. If I click on that, I can go into some diving experiences. And one that I want to show you is swimming with dolphins. So if you like the idea of swimming with dolphins, you can play this video, and you'll see the dolphins appear in a second, and you get nice soothing music and an experience that you would find difficult to have possibly in real life. But there's also global exploration. You can go to a different part of the world. If I click on the map there, it brings me to Europe. And in Europe, I can click on Lisbon and listen to some musicians. Again, I've got this muted, so you won't be able to hear them playing, but if you were in an alcove, you could be there in Lisbon, just listening to and looking around. You have a complete 360-degree view of the environment. So moving on from there, there's also a bus tour that you can go on. If you click on Tokyo, it will take you to one of the biggest zebra crossings in the world. The number of people who cross this Shibuya crossing in Tokyo is absolutely phenomenal, and you can explore that within Alcove VR. So that's just a quick exploration of Alcove, and this really summarises some of the things which I think can contribute to health and well-being. I also wanted to mention a project that I'm involved in as an advisor, and it's a European project called VR to Care. If you Google it, it's a European project, and it's exploring these virtual spaces for physical activity and rehabilitation. And if I bring up the objectives, this is what VR to Care is trying to achieve. It's bringing together technological, clinical and social perspectives of using these kinds of technologies to help understand how they can be used to the benefit of healthy and active aging. It's designed to develop a platform which includes a multi-user virtual reality environment, natural interaction, pervasive monitoring of physical activity, smart virtual assistants, and something that for the target audience, elderly people, is usable, adaptable, extendable and sustainable. And so it's a research project that's designed to establish the effectiveness of these kinds of tools. The VR and Metaverse has some great potential for dementia, not only by creating environments, and in one that I like to use is showing older people bringing back their memories. So I do a lot of recording, which one day I may get played back to myself to remind me of some of the pleasant things in my life. But even environments like mountain tops, forests, seaside, they've been proven to have very good therapeutic effect to dementia sufferers. But the other area where it can be used is that there are games that you can play, including ones that were part of Alcove VR, where by playing the game you not only help to develop or maintain your physical and cognitive skills, but once you're playing the game, it's able to measure whether there is any physical or cognitive decline based on the results of your game. One that I like to use is called VZ Fit, and it's a virtual reality environment that you can use with an exercise bike, or you don't need to use anything. You can just have a virtual reality headset and use the controllers. I'll just play a little bits of the video that from VZ Fit. The first is a promotional video. What this shows is some of the games that you can play that give you exercise and experiences. So that's VZ Fit, and this is how I use it. So I have a little exercise. I've got an exercise bike, but I've got a little device I put on my desk with hand pedals that I can use, and this allows me to create my own riding environment. So I can use effectively Google Street View. So what you're seeing now is the road, the A508, which is about half a mile, or maybe half a mile from. This is about half a mile from where I am sitting now, and what I'm doing is riding, exercising, going along the A508, and I can at the same time take pictures, show people I'm exercising. So it combines fun, games, and exercise that gives you motivation. So yeah, that is VZ Fit. Metaverse can be used for mental health. We're speaking to Debbie earlier on and talking about Debbie and Skip, and talking about an immersive 360-degree environment that can be used for stress management. So here you see an example of a device called Broom X, projecting a relaxing virtual environment that can help people with stress management without the use of a VR headset. So to summarise and conclude, I asked the question, what's Metaverse got to do with health? Well, it's all of the things that I said at the beginning. It creates a space free from the worries of the world. It's an environment we can explore without constraints of the physical world. It helps to give us a sense of control and freedom, which is very important in mental health. It can help with stress management and mental health issues. It can provide space and facilities to exercise. I could be in the middle of a big city. I can be in a flat. I need not spend a huge amount of money to get a little desktop bike that I can pedal and go anywhere in the world. It can also provide an immersive space to socialise, which I think is increasingly important. And it's not just about therapeutics. It's also has the capability, through particularly gamification, to diagnose physical and mental health problems. So that's it. So I really open for any questions now. I'll go around my apartment, see if anyone's been able to join me in room 3D.